before I actually get into the demos, I just wanted to hear from the group, and this can be something where you engage in the chat, or if you want to unmute, you can do that as well. But the topic of this session is all about efficiency. And so I'm curious to hear some of the use cases that you have, all of you have for Workflow Builder. Like, what have you built in Workflow Builder that's helped you to be more efficient? I'd love to just see a few ideas coming in through the chat, or even over your video and mic. Like, what has helped you to be more efficient with workflows? So curious to hear from you all and what you're already doing with Slack workflows to help unlock some efficiency. And I'll give folks a few minutes to type up their responses. I know it can be a little bit, oh, and there's a Q&A open. Okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to jump in as folks are starting to chime in with your use cases. If you do have a question that you just want to put in the parking lot, just to have it there pending, we can make sure to address it throughout the event.
Cool. So any brave souls willing to share their workflow ideas? Okay. I might just keep it moving, but would be happy to see them in the chat. Oh, there we go. Okay, now they're coming in. It just takes a minute, to type them up. So leveraging a workflow for private channels. Yep, dropping you a notification when someone gets added to a private channel. And then, so some folks who haven't used workflows yet, great. Well, I hope to give you a great introduction today. Yeah, so using workflows as the ingestion point for technical support requests. So this is a good one. I'm going to demonstrate a very simple way to do that today, the way that you can sort of intake issues or escalations, whether you're in an IT team or a software development team or something like that. Yeah. Okay, now they're coming in. Lots of ideas here. So it seems like a lot of folks here, like a mix of people who haven't used it and want to see, and then people who are already using workflows to streamline certain aspects of their work, whether it's issue intake, reminders for themselves. So these are all really, really great examples. Thank you for sharing those. All right, well, let's start. The first use case I have is around new hire onboarding. So like, let's say you're a hiring manager, you're responsible for welcoming your new employee, getting them up to speed, added to all the channels that they need, and more. I'm going to show you a very simple workflow that could be the beginning of a new hire onboarding journey. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And I want to share my whole window. One moment. Entire screen. Here I go. I'm so close. All right. So what I'm sharing right now is two different users. In this left pane, I have myself, Bekki, and in this right pane, I've created another user who's a new hire. So I am a manager at a company that makes toys for children. I have a 10-month-old baby, so I came up with an example that I think will be a little bit fun here. But I make toys, and specifically, I make this really cool forklift toy. And babies love to take their forklift toy to the park and share it with other children. And one of my, my main constituency here are, well, babies. And so my company is actually staffed with babies. Okay, folks, this is what we're doing today. I have just hired a new employee. His name is Baby Ryan. In fact, he's my baby. And I am going to welcome him to the team, to the organization. So I am going to compose a new message to, yeah, thank you, to Baby Ryan. And I'm going to say, welcome to the team. Here are some important channels that you might need on day one. Can't wait to meet you, Ryan. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this workflow that I have for all of my new hires. This is something I can use not just for Baby Ryan, but anytime I have a new hire. Just so you all know, in a moment, I'll show you how this is composed. But let me go ahead and get this, this workflow sent over to Baby Ryan so he can get added to these channels. So I go ahead, I welcome Baby Ryan to the team, and he's going to get the opportunity to, as soon as this unfurls, wait for it. Just like, yeah, this is, Oh, thank you. My theme. I don't know what theme this even is. Let me try just posting this link by itself. I will say that I do happen to know that there is a little bit of an incident happening right now at Slack that might be affecting workflows, and I hope it doesn't affect my demo. Okay, good. Phew. It just took a little while. All right, so I've sent this to baby Ryan, and I've welcomed him to the team. Now let's go over and see what's going on for baby Ryan. He's new at the forklift manufacturer, and his boss has sent him a message asking him to join some important channels. So baby Ryan is going to go ahead and start this workflow, and boop, look at that. Just with the click of a button, I've been added to 5 really important channels that are part of my onboarding. I have a feedback channel. I have an AMA channel. I've got a go-to-market channel. I've even got a help channel if I need to reach out to the machine shop. And I've been added to my teams channel as well. Cool. So as you can see, super simple. You could build on this, but just to demonstrate how easy it is to get your team added to lots of channels really quickly. So let's take a look at how I did this. The way that I actually started here, and I'm going to walk you through this, is I went to the Automations hub. So just showing you that one more time, I'm going to this More menu in that far left rail. And then I'm going to Automations. This is where you can create and find workflows and apps as well as templates. So in this Automation hub, the way I started was with a template. Before I even got started, I was like, maybe we have a way already to do some onboarding in one of these templates. So I found this new hire onboarding workflow template, add new teammates to all the right channels. I got started here. And then I decided to use the template to get started. I'm going to just click ahead to this tab where I've already built it out to demonstrate further. So I started to make a couple changes. I didn't change this. The workflow starts from a link in Slack. I already showed you that. And as a reminder, it looks like this. The link is shared in Slack, and then it unfurls into this nice card with a button. What it does next, once baby Ryan clicked that link, what it did was added him to all of these channels. So I select all the channels that I want to be added, and I could have added more, but I decided to keep it simple with these 5. And then I was able to also select who would be added to the channel. I want the person who used this workflow to be added to the channel. I could hard code it to baby Ryan, but the problem with that is that it would only work for baby Ryan. So what I've done here is used a variable, which pulls in whoever uses this workflow is going to get added to those channels. I haven't made any changes here, so I'm just going to close out. Next, I'm going to send a message to baby Ryan, letting him know that he added to these channels. I didn't demonstrate this before, but I'm going to show you now over here on the right side. This is my little only visible to you message. So once Ryan clicked this workflow button, he got added to all of those channels, but he also got this nice little welcome message saying, hey, we're so glad you're here. These channels will help you get started. And yes, you can be added to private channels as well, as long as the workflow author has permissions to add people to that channel. So if you have a private team channel, you can set up the workflow that way. But as the workflow builder, you have to have permission to that channel. Yeah. So it allows you to sort of extend yourself and to automate and scale yourself within the bounds of the permissions that you already have in Slack. So I decided that I wanted to send this message in the channel where the workflow was used. So in this case, Ryan clicked the workflow in this DM, and so that's where this message is appearing. I wanted it to be sent to the person who used this workflow. So this is telling me who it will be visible to. It's visible to Ryan here. And then I'm able to customize this message. So the message says, hey, welcome, Ryan, to the forklift manufacturer. We're so glad you're here. The way that I did this, the way that I added this nice little touch where it says, hey, welcome, Ryan, and it's very personalized, is I used a variable. So I'm just going to demonstrate that really quickly here. I'm going to delete this, and I'm going to add it back. I'm going to add back the person who used this workflow. and I get that nice little customization, personalization touch on my message to baby Ryan, okay? Haven't made any changes, so I don't need to save anything here, but that is how I've built this very simple workflow just to get started with some basic channels. Before I move on, I'm happy to take more questions, and then I have a couple more use cases that I can show. Let's look at the chat. So we answered the question about private channels and then customize for each department and team. Yeah, exactly. So in this case, it's like, I'm the manager for the team. I'm responsible for getting my team maybe added to specific channels that are just for my team. Maybe my IT department has some sort of automation they run that adds people to some high level, announcement channels at the company level. But what this does is allow each team manager to sort of take control of onboarding their own team. And then once I have that workflow, I can share that link with the people on my team that I want to be onboarded.
Hey, Becky, can I ask you a question that came in the Q&A?
Yeah.
Excellent. And if you don't know, please say so, no worries. Zach has asked, I love triggers, especially webhooks, but today they are incredibly insecure since anyone who gets the link can now trigger the webhook. Are there plans to make triggers that can come from third-party applications? Would love if they could accept API keys, secrets.
Great question. We do have some work or some like prototypes and proofs of concept right now for third-party triggers. So that's something that we're experimenting internally with right now. That's not something that my team is building, and so I don't know how they're planning to handle like secrets and API keys, but I can certainly take a note, or Jacob, I don't know if you're taking notes, so we can follow up with that team, and I can pass along the feedback about that request. So yes, something that we're experimenting with and investigating. I personally don't know how we're going to handle API keys and secrets, but we can find out.
Cool. Thanks, Becky.
Mm-hmm.
And thank you, Zach, for asking.
Yeah, good question. Is there another question from the Q&A?
We do have another one from Zach, but maybe to switch it up for someone else. I see that there are a couple in the chat, perhaps.
So let's see. Do we have roles in Slack for different teams? I'm not sure I understand that question. I don't know, Blair, if you would be able to kind of maybe restate the question with a little bit more detail, so I know how to answer that better. I'm going to move on to Jerry's question. Questions about channel sections. Can the workflow move the channel to another section automatically as well? That is not a capability that we have built today through workflows, but it's certainly something that we hear a lot. I've heard this feedback before. I can share that the team that sort of owns that sort of sidebar section feature in Slack has done a lot of experimentation with how to essentially share sections, so that maybe when, as part of onboarding, you might share with, be able to share with a new hire like a section organization scheme from day one. So we're looking at it from a few different angles. Like one is, from the sidebar team, and the other from workflows, but not something that's possible today. But certainly understand the feedback and understand the utility of something like that. And then, so Sherry has a question: is how did I send the workflow to them? So in this example, what I did, and I'll just demo this one more time to show you. In this example, what I did is I copied the workflow link and I shared it directly with Ryan. There are other ways that you could do this, but I think this is probably the most straightforward. So let me just show that one more time. So coming back to my home, I'm going to go to my automations hub. And these are all the workflows in my organization that I have permission to sort of see. But I might want to be like, oh, I need my new hire onboarding for my team. I can go here and I can do a couple things. I can directly share or forward this workflow to Ryan. I can also just copy the workflow link if I want to compose it in a message. So let's just look at those two options. So here I can say, hey, baby Ryan, click this workflow. So this is one way that that I could do this. So I could forward this to Ryan, and then you can see over here on the right side of my screen that message has been sent to him. We're having, I think, a little bit of a technical issue on the Slack side right now with these unfurls are really slow. I apologize. It shouldn't be that slow. It should be kind of unfurling like this a little bit faster. The other way that you could do this, again, is to go back to this automations hub, go to my workflows, and then with this new hire onboarding is I could copy the workflow link and I could send it that way. So I could go back to my, over here is Bekki, the manager, and I could compose a message to baby Ryan and say, hi Ryan, use this workflow to get yourself added to some key channels. So those are two ways that I could do that. Just sharing the link directly or forwarding it as I showed before. And yeah, so it's that sharing that link is what is responsible for the message, yeah. Or I should say sharing the link, and then what Ryan did is he started this workflow. So once I've shared this with someone, whether it's here in this DM or maybe in a channel even, or even in a canvas, this also will work in a Slack canvas. Once Ryan over here clicks to start this workflow, he runs it, and that's what allows him to sort of get added to those channels. This time, it didn't do anything because I just added Ryan to these channels, so it didn't do anything. But the first time that I ran it, it did add him to those channels. Let's see, let me keep going for the... So going back to Blair's question, different roles have different channel access, more like a workflow that sends automatically to the message manually. I'm going to take a guess at this. So I think you were talking about maybe some like IDP groups or SCIM and how to provision users like in a kind of a more scaled way to channels that they should have access to. That is a capability that exists in Slack. So for like some of our paid plans, like our grid offering, for example, you can use groups or roles like IDP groups to do things like assign channels. That is not specifically powered by workflows. But we have heard from administrators of Slack that they want to be able to use workflows to do more things like scaled channel management. So something that we're certainly aware of, that administrators want to use workflows to do actions like that, but not like today, you don't have the ability to, let's say, name an IDP group, let's say in a workflow to do channel management, but that might be something that we look into the future. And then Mabel has a question about like, how do you do a workflow from zero? So let me show you that again. I'm going to just close some of these windows, new hire onboarding. So this is the one that I was using here that I showed you, but I'll just start over with the template and do a new one and show you guys one more time. So I'm going to go from more, automations. I did decide to use a template here, so maybe that was the part that you had the question about. So I'll show you the template one more time, and then I'll also show you from zero. So I go new hire onboarding, and I get a little bit of a start here. I'm going to use this template. I'm not going to make any changes to this trigger. It's going to start from a link. Here's where I can start to customize this template for my own team. So the channels that I want to add people to. So this is my first step. Where do I want my new team members to be added? So I might add them to Team Forklift. I might add them to Feedback Forklift, Forklift AMA. Remember, I'm a forklift manufacturer. I make toys for kids, go to market forklift, this help channel for the machine shop. I think that's good. I'm going to stop there. And the person who I want to add, the default here is going to be the person who used the workflow. So that's already in good shape. So this is my first step. I'm going to save it. And that would work. So this alone would get the job done. It would add that person to those channels. But I want to go a step further. I want to add this personalization. I want to add this touch of like, hey, welcome to the team, right? I want this to feel, I want to kind of close that loop with my new hire. So I'm going to add a step here, which is going to be to send them a message to this person who used the workflow. And I'm going to say, hey, person who used this workflow, welcome to the forklift manufactory. We're so glad you're here, and let's say these channels will help you get up to speed quickly. Let me know if you have any questions. Okay, and so I'm going to go ahead and save that. So what I've done here is once this link is shared with that new hire and they click it, they're going to get added to 5 channels, and they're going to get a little message from me saying, hey, welcome to the team. So let's go ahead and finish up. I'm going to customize this a little bit. Okay, cool. I've just created a brand new workflow. I'm going to copy this link so I can share it with my new hire. So let's go back here. Let's poor baby Ryan, he's getting so many messages from me today, but it'll be okay. Okay. Now, over here on baby Ryan, he's gotten this message from me to run this workflow. Now, just as a reminder, since he's already been added to these channels this morning, the workflow isn't really going to do anything, but I just wanted to demonstrate how you can start from scratch, okay? So he's going to start that workflow. He's going to get added to those channels, and he's going to get this little message that says, hey, welcome to the team, to kind of close the loop, right? So that's how you would create something from scratch. Let's see. Let's keep going. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next use case. Does that sound good?
Yeah, great.
Okay, so the next one I have, leaving the new hire onboarding behind, is going to be a feedback workflow. And the use case here is, sorry, just kind of taking a step back, is, is that, this is, again, a toy company, and we build forklifts and maybe other toys as well for kids. And we need to manage, feedback internally. Maybe there's a quality control issue. Maybe there are, design problems with the toys. Maybe people have feature ideas for enhancements, and we want to be able to collect that internally. You can take this workflow and this example, and I think you can imagine how it could be used for an internal IT team. And any team that needs to collect, tickets, escalations, and issues could use something like this to help them gather structured feedback and respond to it. So my goal here is, to share with you how you might collect structured feedback in a channel, and then have a conversation with the folks that are providing that feedback. I have this feedback workflow that I've built. I'm going to show you how it works, and then we'll kind of decompose it like we did for the last one. We'll step through kind of how I built it. So I have a feedback workflow here that starts from a link. It collects some structured feedback, and it posts back to the channel. I've already shared it here in my feedback forklift channel. It's in the channel. It's also in this bookmark. I'm going to go ahead and have baby Ryan run this workflow. He's new at the company. He's got some really good ideas for how we can improve the toys. So he's going to go ahead and add his feedback. And the first question is, like, what type of feedback is this? Is it a bug? Is it a feature idea? Is it a usability issue? I'm going to go ahead and say that baby Ryan has a feature idea. Just a thought, could we add a tow hitch and string to the front of the toy? This would allow kids to pull their forklift around behind them. What fun. This is a great feature idea for my toy. And this is not a high priority. This is just a fun idea for feedback. And so baby Ryan's going to go ahead and submit this to the channel. And then now I've got this sort of structured feedback in the channel. It's all going to be in the same format. And maybe, as the manager, I'm like, ooh, this is a good idea. Like, Ryan's full of good ideas. hey Ryan, you know, thanks for the feedback. Tell me more. What kind of string did you have in mind? What would the tow hitch do, if anything? So I can like start to have this conversation with Ryan to understand better his feedback. Again, this is, you know, a made up scenario. It's a little bit silly, but you can imagine how this type of interaction can be really valuable for a product team, for an IT team. And in fact, this is how we at Slack manage, you know, hundreds of internal channels for all of the features that we have. And we have people coming in who are internal stakeholders, CSMs, you know, people like Jacob and others who come and give us feedback, their own feedback, but also feedback on behalf of their customers. And then we manage these conversations in threads like this to make sure we're getting all of the information we need, a better understanding of the customer's problem, and what are the next steps to follow up and resolve the issue. So this is a very simple workflow, but you can imagine how it could be used and extended for lots of use cases. Okay, so then so I will get to the questions. I do want to just show how to build this really quick. So, you know, I've demonstrated how the workflow behaves in the channel, and now I want to show you how I built it. For this one, I also started with a template. So let me just show that again. So I went to more automations, I went to the templates, and I found one for collecting feedback. Let's see. Feedback submissions. This is the one that I use. So I use this template and I clicked to use the template, which created a new workflow for me here. But there's still some work to do to kind of customize it. I'm just going to skip over here and show you how I customized it. So I wanted to first ask, you know, what kind of feedback do you have? And for this, I wanted a drop down. I wanted it to be either a bug, a feature idea, or usability issue. These are the three general classes of feedback I get, and this helps me structure the data a little bit better and understand maybe the urgency. You know, if a customer is reporting a bug, that's going to be more urgent to me and more important perhaps than maybe an internal colleague sharing a feature idea with me. I ask, you know, to the end user who's filling out the form to share a little bit more about their issue or their idea, and then also an idea of the severity. So that's the customization I did there. I'll show one more thing. You can also preview if you're curious to see what it will look like to your end user. You can see that here. My issue or idea is optional. I actually want to fix that. Let's go back to editing. Let's go here. Let's make this required. That was a mistake I made. So that preview step can help you make sure that everything is just right before you publish. And then on this last one, what I did is I added a little bit of customization here. The person who used this workflow just submitted some feedback. And then I added these headers like the feedback type, the issue description, and the severity, just to structure that data a little bit better in the channel. And that's it. Those are the changes that I made to that workflow before sharing it in the channel. Okay, so let's go to these questions, and then I'll pass it on to Jacob to demonstrate the AMA workflow, just keeping an eye on the time. From Jerry, is there a best practice for where you want messages to go? I've seen them sent to Slackbot, and the one you just demoed went to the workflow name listed under apps. Yeah, so I think that the Slackbot experience was something that was like sort of was the tool that we had for what I'll call like legacy workflows. And so you would get a lot of messages from Slackbot related to workflows. And we did over the summer share our updated workflow product. Internally, like we call it Workflows 2.0. I think for you, it's just workflows, like the new updated workflows. And the new updated workflows, the way this works is we do get these sort of more individualized messages from these apps, which we think is a better experience because like, oh, it's the new hire onboarding app. I know this. Like I clicked on this button a few minutes ago. This makes sense. Like I know where this is coming from, and it also allows me to take a look and see like maybe who created it. And it's like, oh yeah, this came from my boss. Like I understand what this is and where it's coming from. instead of just getting, lots of messages from Slackbot that are coming from lots of different places. We do think this is a bit better experience. So this is what you can expect in the V2. If that, hopefully I've answered that question. Yeah, and then so Joe has a really good comment here, which is that I could extend this further. So what I've done here is I've just posted it to channel, but what you can do is then store all this data to a data store. You could store it to Google Sheets. You could store it to any one of these sort of like spreadsheet type apps that maybe you use at your organization that might be linked in Slack. So Microsoft Excel being another example here. So you absolutely can then sync all of this data into that Google Sheet for yourself. Yeah. I'm just kind of scrolling to see, does this workflow sit in the channel you want to use it in? And whenever someone has an idea, they would run the workflow again. Exactly. So typically the way that we would do this, so like if that workflow that I just showed was specific to my my feedback forklift channel. And so now you could see how, let's see, I'm going to show you in the channel. It is specific to that channel. So if I go back here, I'm just going to expand this out a little bit. There's a couple places that this lives. I've shared it in the channel. Obviously, as the channel history moves on and on, this message is going to recede. It won't be visible, but this one will always be here. This is your bookmarks bar. And here is where you can direct people to use this workflow to run it anytime. It's part of this channel here. It's not running for me right now, and I think this might be related, I'm sorry, to our ongoing incident that we're having right now, which is really unfortunate timing. But this is a way that folks could always access that workflow right here in this bookmarks bar. Is the feedback easily exportable? Yeah, it doesn't require API work. You can export it to Google Sheet. You can export it to Microsoft Excel. There are lots of ways that you could sort of sync this data to your data store of choice. And that doesn't require API work. You can do that right in Workflow Builder. For example, I'm not authenticated to Google Sheets here, so it's not even available. Oh, is it? Yeah, it's right here. So I could, add this data to a spreadsheet. I think that I've broken the authentication to here, so I don't know if this is actually going to work. Oh, okay. Well, I guess it worked. So here's an example of how I'm able to create a new spreadsheet with all of my form responses, and it's going to pass all of the answers to those questions into this spreadsheet. So that was that worked well because I was authenticated. I was worried that I wasn't authenticated and it wasn't going to work. So yeah, you can sync all of this right to a spreadsheet without having to do any API work. Okay, I think I'm just going to look and see if there's any more burning questions before I hand it over to Jacob to do the AMA workflow. So everything that I showed today was free. So everything that I showed today was a built-in step. And you can have one third-party step like this without triggering that sort of premium feature. So you can have everything I showed today would be included, kind of built in. Okay, I think that's all I have for now. And I'm going to pass it to Jacob to show the AMA workflow. Thanks, everyone.
Awesome. Thanks, Becky. That was fantastic. We had a lot of good conversation in the chat. Great. So I'm going to show everyone here a use case we use on, I would say, a monthly basis. Yeah, a monthly basis here in the Slack community. We host an AMA every single month with a different Slack team designated for that AMA as the hosts. This upcoming one will be with our product specialists for March. In April, we'll have the product analytics team, and I'm working with the accessibility team for the May AMA, and we've had a whole host of teams run AMAs, and we've decided to not only keep it within the Slack community workspace, but to use Workflow Builder. And so what you're looking at right now, I've made the screen a little bit, I've moved it up and hid a little bit just to make it focused on each thing that we're addressing. So based on what Bekki shared with you earlier, you all know now that you can start a workflow from a link in Slack. So that's how I've decided to trigger the workflow. Folks are going to click on the link or click on that green button, which I'll show you, that says Start Workflow. And then the next step here, first of all, you'll notice that when I hover over here, I can input different steps, which are here. And you also have connectors like Airtable, Asana, Box, all of these different connectors. And so all this is a series of steps. So let me go back up here and take this piece by piece. So when someone clicks on that workflow link in Slack, just like Bekki showed you earlier, a form is going to open. In that form, we're asking two different things. We're asking, which AMA is this for? I'm just going to make this a little bigger. So last month, we had the team who works on Slack Connect, the ability to work with external partners in Slack. And then the second question is, what would you like to ask? That's it. This is just to enable AMA attendees, Ask Me Anything attendees, to ask a question. You don't need to put in your name. You don't need to do any of that. And so we give them the option to write their question, just two different questions. Then once they hit submit on that form, this message gets sent to a private channel with the AMA hosts, myself, and other Slack team members. Why? Because, oh, first I should say, I'm sorry, let me back up. First, there's a confirmation message that goes to the person who submitted a question. Thank you for submitting your question. This gets sent in a DM version that confirms that we've received your question. Then the next step is where we go to the moderation channel. So their question gets first sent to a private channel with myself and the hosts. This allows for the host to look at the question, make sure it's on topic, and it's not irrelevant, or it's not spammy, or it's not asking something way off base. Putting it into a private channel first is a really good best practice in order to triage and make sure that the questions being addressed and answered during the event are related to the topic. And sorry, my Slack is going off the rails right now with a whole bunch of sound. Sorry about that. Once the hosts have taken a look at the question, again, we're looking at variables here. So there's an incoming question for the public channel from the person who submitted the form. We've listed which AMA this is for and what question that attendee wanted to ask. Let's pretend I'm the host. I say, yes, I want to answer this question. I'm going to insert a button into this workflow step, which enables you to label the button, which we've done as approve plus post. And when that button is clicked, that triggers the next step in the workflow, which sends this information to the public channel for the entire Slack workspace to see the question right here, which AMA it was for, and who submitted that question. This enables you to not only tag or ping or notify the person who asked the question, but it also shows you the question. It also reminds you which AMA it's for. And if all the questions are for the same AMA, that makes it very easy. But it also reminds the person who asked the question to come back and see, oh, hey, my question got addressed. And so what happens after this is the hosts will go right into the thread of that post, and I'll show you what this looks like, and just answer the question in a thread. They could type a Slack message, they could do a video clip, whatever they want to do. And this just makes it really easy to streamline an AMA while also considering a moderation component of bringing it to a private channel first. Once this posts into the public channel, we let the person who submitted the question know that their question got approved. So we're pinging them another time as well, because we want them to come back and see how their question was answered. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my Slack workspace, and I'm going to actually show you what this looks like in practice. So what you're looking at right now is the Slack community workspace. I've cleaned my sidebar just a little bit. And you're looking at the public AMA, Slack AMA channel. This is the step in the workflow where the question populates from the private channel after the hosts have moderated it. So we have the text. There's a new question from Andrew Rousseau. Remember, Andrew Rousseau was the variable, the person who submitted the workflow. This is a variable as well. This is the answer to the question in the form, what would you like to ask? So all we're doing here is inserting steps and plugging in variables. That's all we're doing, and Slack does the rest for you. So once it comes to the channel, the hosts reply right in thread. This is from Brenda Cheng, one of our product managers that works on Slack Connect. And so this isn't a super good example because it's not something that's been shipped or has been worked on. But as you can see here, Brenda engaged in conversation, and Mike is here as well. And so you can see that this helps create some conversation in thread during the AMA. And so it sort of naturally allows for that organic engagement. And if your public AMA channel should be broadcast only, no one should be able to post a net new post. However, you can enable threads, and that's what enables everyone, all members, to contribute to the channel because they are allowed to reply in thread as opposed to post their own question. You can see that I can post here because I'm the admin, but a typical member would not be able to post. And so that's really how you can automate. All we've done is had someone complete a workflow to submit their question. The question went to a private channel for the hosts. The hosts reviewed that question, assuming it was okay to go. Then they clicked the button and it got sent to this public channel where they replied in thread. And before I go to the questions, I just want to show one last thing. You might be thinking, what do you mean by a button? I want to give you a sense as to what that button looks like, because buttons are really, I think, underrated pieces of Workflow Builder. And I'm actually going to make this bigger now that we've gone through the workflow. So I'm going into the step where it goes into the private channel for the hosts. I'm going to open that up, and you can see here you have the option to include a button. That button, all that button does is trigger the next step in the workflow, being moving the question to the public channel. That's all it's doing. And you can customize this text here, which makes it even more fun and enables you to be creative in how you want folks to take, or how you want your hosts to take that action. So all you're doing, that button just means a trigger. It triggers this step right here, bringing the question and all of this text and variables into the public channel. Buttons are really fun. It just makes it more user-friendly, and they work really well, and you can customize them. But all it is a trigger to the next step in the workflow. And so you can see the rest of we call these connectors here, or you can insert more steps. Maybe you want to send a message to the channel for some reason. You can drag and drop like so. But steps are really fun because you can get creative with it. What do I want this workflow to do next? And so I will stop talking for a second and just see what folks are asking. So curious to see Jacob's AMA workflow and if it is different from mine. Yes, I am very curious, Becky. We use a lot of workflows like this internally as well, especially, this is really good for those of you, even if you're at a smaller organization, but especially at a bigger organization, maybe during your all hands call, your all team call, your internal call, you can set up a workflow like this, which would maybe, instead of sending it to a channel like this, maybe it's being sent to executive leadership team or internal comms team to moderate. And maybe you don't have anything after that because maybe that's all they need is to send it to the private channel and they'll just speak the question out loud. So start to think about how you can get creative with these types of things. You can really customize it. And again, this is no code, low code. I am not a developer. I did this without a single line of code. All I'm doing is writing text, determining where messages go, inserting steps, inserting variables based on what I want the workflow to do, what I want people to do, what I want people to accomplish, what I want the end result to be, et cetera, et cetera. And a plug for anyone who isn't part of the Slack community workspace. You can actually join the Slack community workspace in your confirmation email from this event. There is a purple button in that email at the bottom that says join us in Slack. Please join us in Slack. We not only have a feedback channel where you can see a very similar use case. You can take advantage of it, similar to what Bekki showed. We have a feedback channel with a feedback workflow for product feature feedback, Slack platform feedback. We also have the AMA channel, which you can jump into. The workflow's inactive right now because our next AMA is not happening till the middle of March with our product specialists. But once it is, I open up the workflow 24 hours in advance in case you're in a different time zone or you can't make it in real time to submit your questions. And then at the time of the event, you can start submitting and continue submitting as many questions as you want. And you can continually do this and fill out the workflow as many times as you want, which I really love, because prior to the new platform, you could only really click a button in a workflow once, and you couldn't do it multiple times. So this new workflow builder has been a game changer because you can submit as many questions as you want. Any questions from folks? I know that, I see the Q&A has questions. I will do my best to get to it. Will it be possible to have two buttons when I click, it will trigger two different workflows? That's a good question, Imran. I don't know, but it is a good question. Something else I think about similar to that question is like emoji triggers. So maybe you've set up an emoji trigger where anytime someone reacts to a message, any message in a Slack channel with a specific emoji, it could trigger a step, which could send you to different places. For those that don't know about emoji triggers or life-changing, let us know if you have questions about that. But no two sort of branched off workflows.
I have something I can share about that, Jacob.
Please.
Certainly, the having two different buttons that will take the user down two different paths is something that we hear a lot about. It's something that we're just starting to prototype. So I don't have a timeline I can share with you about when that might be available or what ultimately, what we deliver, what it's going to look like or how it's going to behave, because we're only just starting that process. But we certainly understand the value of having, the ability to take the user down a different path based on that input, like based on that button that they select. And then as Jacob noted, today the workaround for this, and I'll admit, it's a little bit kludgy, but it works, is you can use emoji triggers to sort of solve for that conditional branching. It's something that we use internally as well. So you can have I'll say like the thumbs up emoji will trigger a workflow to go through some sort of approval process, and maybe the thumbs down emoji will trigger a different path or different process. So there is a way to achieve that today with emoji triggers, but it's not obvious how to do that, I think, in the product. So we have some work to do for sure to make that a better experience for you and others.
Thank you, Becky. Yeah, +1 to that. And I should also say, Mike just put in the chat a really fun use case for Workflow Builder for grocery shopping. I guess I should say as well, for those of you with kids, maybe you have teenagers at home. I had a colleague once tell me that they required their kids to fill out a workflow if they wanted to hang out with their friends. And that request went to my colleague. My colleague reviewed it, and they potentially hit a button or set up a different trigger, which sent a message back to their kids, which said, hey, you're approved for this, or no, it's a school night, you can't go out. So you can really get fun with it, or have fun with it, and think of really creative use cases. The last one I'll say with emoji triggers, internally we do this a lot, but you can select a certain special custom emoji that maybe isn't used that often, and designate that emoji as whenever someone reacts with that very unique emoji to any message across your entire Slack instance, it can send that message to a specific channel, maybe a private team channel for visibility into what's happening in your Slack workspace, or maybe it's related to some initiative you're doing. It just is a really easy way to maybe funnel information to a specific spot, maybe for your team, for your admins. So that's a really fun emoji use case. Yeah, I could talk all day about Workflow Builder. Anything else? I guess I should say, if I want to just make it easy for you all, I can grab the link, the join link for the Slack community workspace if you want that more directly, so you don't have to go rummaging through your email inbox. We don't know what rummaging through an email inbox is like at Slack because we are in Slack, but I feel for you all. So I just put the link in the chat, the join link for the Slack community workspace. And there is a members Twin Cities channel as well. We have a few other chapter channels for a variety of different chapters around the globe. But Yeah, that's it from me. I feel like I'm talking too much. Mike, any other thoughts from you?
No, that's great. I love that use case you just brought up too. No, that's awesome. I actually heard of somebody who did the same thing when they changed their Wi-Fi password for their children day to day. For them to get approval for the Wi-Fi password for the next day, they had to go through Workflow Builder. It's pretty cool.
That's amazing.
That's really
That's
neat.
amazing.
No, thanks you. Thanks, Jacob.
Yeah.
Anybody? We got a few minutes left. Anybody have any burning questions that you have?
This has been great.
Yeah, and thanks everyone for all the feedback and questions. I think, for some of the feature requests that you have, I'm not directly responsible for them, but I took some notes and I'll be passing the feedback along to those teams.
It looks like we have one more question. Looks like Bo has one over here on the Q&A.
I don't see Joe's question.
Oh, here, I can share out loud. As a Slack admin, I often run into issues when people who have departed and their workflows are abandoned. Is there a way to get a list of all legacy workflows and/or getting access to all of them to amend their owners rather than one by one, which is a really painful experience, which I agree with Joe.
Yeah, so this is actually an area of the product where I don't have a lot of experience, the admin piece. But I can get an answer for you. I've taken a note about that to take to the platform admin team to ask them what the best way is to do that. So I wonder, Jacob, if that's something that I can kind of pass back to you, to pass back to Joe. Yeah. And if I can get the answer to that, I'll share it back in the community workspace in terms of the best way to go about doing that as an admin, to find those unknown workflows and how to kind of claim them as your own. And I'm sorry, I don't have the answer for you. It's just an area of the product where I don't work on a day-to-day basis. So I want to just make sure I get the right answer for you.
Now, Becky and Jacob, before we wrap up, is there so if anybody comes up with a great question in the next couple of days about Workflow Builder, how can they get those questions answered?
Yeah, that's a great question. So from a community standpoint, with the join link I dropped into the chat, we actually have a Workflow Builder channel, which you all can post in and drop your own knowledge, share your own expertise. But there is a Workflow Builder channel in the Slack community workspace. I don't believe it's a default channel, so you'll have to use the channel browser to search for it, which is a good thing. We want you to search for other channels to join. So drop into channel and we'll see you there.
Awesome. Thank you, Becky. Thank you, Jacob. Thank you, everybody. This was awesome.
Thank you, Mike. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for being engaging. This was really great.
Thank you. Cheers.
All right. Take care. See ya.